equatorial constellations shifting throughout these ages, throughout precessional time. And there's a story I just kind of recently realized is therefore a precessional story, which is old Greek stories about the giant Orion, the son of Poseidon, walking through the ocean, that he was so giant that he could walk on the sea floor and his chest and arms would be above the water. Well, as we've seen, and we will see more because it's very important to the revelations of this paradigm, dare I say, that the hand of the high man in our day and age points to the Tropic of Cancer, which, as we've seen, is the highest point of the zodiac in northern hemisphere skies. Well, halfway through the precessional cycle, so 13,000 years ago, or 13,000 years from now, that means Orion will be pointing to the Tropic of Capricorn, which is the lowest place of the zodiac in northern hemisphere skies, like places like Greece. And so 13,000 years ago, Orion was real low, so low that his legs never rose in Greece. And so he was literally, if you look down to the Mediterranean, only walking on the ocean with his lower body below and his upper body above. But if they even knew about his lower body, they either had to travel down to Africa or something to get a view where Orion would have been higher, or they had to carry the wisdom from an even older age. There are other stories I've heard from you, Daniel, about precessional shifts with constellations like that with Centaurus.
Yeah, what I've understood from different sources is that the greatest number of temples that are in Asia Minor, in the area of Turkey and adjacent to there, were dedicated to Chiron, amazingly enough, before they were taken over by the Zeus cults. And one can begin to understand why that would be the case, because if you go back maybe 3,000-4,000 BC, 2,000-3,000 BC, Centaurus, the constellation that is entirely Chiron, it's allocated to Chiron, began, due to the precessional cycles, to sink. So that from that latitude, it began to disappear from those latitudes. And what's interesting about that is that as it began to disappear, they had to transfer the Centaur cult to a different constellation, because up to that time period, what is called Sagittarius, which the Sumerians saw as an archer or a warrior, so they began projecting the horse onto the Sagittarius constellation, while Centaurus disappeared to the south. Now, what's really cool is where I'm living over here at 14 degrees north latitude, Centaurus is really, really prominent. While it's you're hard pressed to see much of it at all, in America, for example. But another example of this is that the constellation very prominent in the southern hemisphere, the Southern Cross, which gives you an opportunity, a way of looking and seeing where the south point actually is now, because the point of the south is not really marked by any star right now. So it turns out that the stars of the Southern Cross were able to be seen for about a 500-year time period from the West Kennet Long Barrow, which is right above where Avebury in Wiltshire of England is. So you can imagine what effect that would have had on an ancient mythic stories. That for a very short period of time, there's the Southern Cross that you can actually see that far north. Pretty remarkable how that would have been for the ancients keeping track.